So for this next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a line graph. Pretty much follows the same process, but the reason that you would use a line graph is if you want to compare, if you want to show a relationship between two different parameters. So for this case, I'm going to show the sample time. You do not need to use the sample time. If you're using, I'm using sample time because I'm only using one sample day. So it's May 19th, 1980. For you, you most likely have used sample dates, multiple sample dates, so you can just apply the time to the date in this case. So don't worry about the fact that you don't have sample times. So I have the column sample time selected, and I want to compare that to, let's say, the dissolved oxygen. So again, we press down on the control button and hold, and then just click and drag to highlight this column here. And then I like to go to the picture. You don't have to do that. I select that. Now in this case, it automatically assumed that I wanted a bar chart. But of course this does not make sense, because here you have the time, here you have the dissolved oxygen at the top. So the way you change it is you want to make sure that your setup is highlighted, and you go to chart type, click on the actual dialog box, and then from here you can select what chart type you want to use. So in this case, I want to use a line graph, so I choose this. Again, this doesn't make sense because now you're seeing two different line graphs. You have a line graph here for the Winkler method for dissolved oxygen, and here you have the sample time. And we want this to be dissolved oxygen versus sample time. So how do we do this? It's maybe not straightforward, but it's pretty simple. So we want to go back to setup here. And series refers to the y-axis. We don't need the sample time, so what we do is we click these three dots here, these vertical dots, tap that, and it'll open up and you can remove it. Now we only have our dissolved oxygen. Let's go to add x-axis, and here you see that it lists both parameters. Select sample time, and now you have sample time at the bottom, you have dissolved oxygen on the side. But where are your data labels? Or rather your axis labels? Where's your chart title? Now we have to make sure that we insert all of those. Let's try something. Okay. So let's go to customize. This is where you start doing the actual text editing. So first, let's do chart and axis titles. And here we can just type in, let's say, dissolved oxygen versus sample time. Then we can change the font. Oh, this is right now, I'm sorry. So right now this is a horizontal axis title is selected, and that's what's here. So I'm actually going to remove dissolved oxygen versus, just keep sample time, and now it's fine. We then change the chart title, and then that's when we put in dissolved oxygen versus sample time. And now you have your chart title. I like to center my titles because it just looks better. And then you can change the vertical axis and include dissolved oxygen, and make sure that you include the measurement used. So So it's in milligrams per liter. Or you can say ppm, means the same thing. Same thing. All the same things apply in terms of the series. Like you can change the title. I'm sorry, change the color. So let's change it to green, just because. You can change the thickness, which is kind of nice. So you can make it thicker if you want. You can make it thinner. Again, just focus on making sure that people can read it when we look at it. You can change whether or not you want to use a line versus, let's say, dotted lines. So you can do that. I don't recommend labels in this case. It's much better for bar graphs because, as you can see here, you have this section where the labels are one on top of the other. So it doesn't make sense to do that. What you can add, however, is a trend line, which is kind of nice. A trend line is basically a best fit line based on your data. And if you want to see if there's been a decline or an increase in dissolved oxygen, keep in mind this is during a very small sample time period. You can show, if you click on label here, you can show use equation, and you can see the actual equation right here. And this gives you the slope right here, how much of it has increased or decreased. There's other kinds of scales. I haven't used any of the other ones. I typically use the linear scale, but if you can explain what it means during your presentation, you're more than welcome to use the other kinds of scales. Again, same thing applies. Legend, horizontal axis, vertical axis, grid lines. I do recommend in this case, because you're dealing with such a short change in dissolved oxygen, you want to eliminate as much white space as possible. So the way that you do that, this has to do with the vertical axis. So we go to vertical axis here, and you can set your minimum value. So let's set it to be 6. There we go. And we just have to expand this, or rather, let's do that. Great. So now we have it set to 6. The top is fine. And you can see your changes a little bit better. And then I do want to change the major grid line count. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's add 2 more. There we go. And so in this case, I want to go back here and change the maximum amount to 8.5. Oops. There we go. Okay, great. So again, this is just to give you another option of a chart type that you can use to analyze your data. You can change the colors. You can even change the color of this best fit line here if you want to, up to you. You can also include a legend, which is already right here. You can change the location. So if you want it on the bottom, if you want it on the side, it's typically shown on the side, but you don't have to show it on the side. In this case, it looks very strange. So let's put it on the bottom for now. And that is it. And the next video will be the combination chart.